I am here with JT. Yes, JT from Microsoft. And JT, you're a Azure Developer Engagement Lead. Is that right?
That is 100% correct.
Right. I guess that means that you engage developers?
I do. I'm lucky enough to get to cruise around Melbourne and talk to lots of developers who are and maybe want to build stuff on Azure as their cloud.
So I want to talk about something that was released at the Mobile World Congress, MWC, in Barcelona. The HoloLens 2 came out. But before that, they announced something called the Azure, what was it?
Connect?
Azure Connect, that's right. Because I'm like, hang on, that's Azure Cloud Connect is something that's... So how do you know how that works?
So I think Connect is probably something that most people associate with Xbox and Windows.
Definitely.
Azure Connect is a really cool new IoT edge version of the Connect that allows you to have all of that great imaging and sound plugged into the power of AI and ML on Azure.
So it's kind of like the original Connect that, like, if you don't know what a Connect is, it was a peripheral, I guess, for the Xbox that would track your motions and stuff, and you could do stuff as a developer. You can kind of capture that. And now there's a much smaller version that is connected to the cloud, kind of. Is that right?
Yeah, so it has the depth sensing cameras that were used with the original Xbox, but much higher quality versions now that allow you to do things like skeleton tracking and motion detection and feed that through a bunch of the cognitive services that come with Azure as a cloud platform.
So it goes to the cloud, which is a nice segue to the HoloLens 2 that was announced. So I won't go into too much of the hardware of the HoloLens because you can kind of just look that up. But it has greater depth of field of view, so it's more degrees that you can see. It's lighter, it's more comfortable, yada yada yada. There's a bunch of hardware features. But what really was interesting to me was the whole kind of cloud integration of it with Azure.
So uploading them to the cloud effectively lets you have multiple users sharing real world space, but sharing mixed reality holograms and assets so that you can be wearing a HoloLens and see a hologram in front of you. I can also be wearing a HoloLens and see that from my perspective, but we share that mixed reality in the world. The other cool thing that we've announced around that is that's going to be multi-platform. So you can be wearing a HoloLens and look at the hologram. I can use the SDK on an app on my iPhone and see the hologram from my point of view as well, and we share that mixed reality.
So you don't need to have a $3,500 HoloLens to use it?
You should definitely get one, but no, you don't need to have one to be able to use Azure Spatial Anchors.
This is really cool. It basically means that we can all share the anchors that we have in all the apps that we create.
Exactly. So we get a better user experience, particularly I think with the industrial focus of a lot of the HoloLens 2 stuff. You mentioned hardware. I thought the coolest bit of hardware announced was the HoloLens that's mounted into a hard hat for industrial applications. But it allows us to better sort of share that mixed reality of the real world and the non-real world.
And the other service that was announced was Azure Remote Rendering. And if you've ever done anything with 3D, whether it's HoloLens or not, there's a real sort of sacrifice in rendering quality when you're on especially a mobile device. And I guess this is kind of trying to help in that regard. Is that right?
So one of the advantages that you obviously have in the cloud is infinite computing power for some values of infinite.
Yeah.
So given that rendering 3D assets is really computationally intensive, why not do that in the cloud and leverage the cloud computing power and then stream that down to a device like a HoloLens? So then we don't need as much compute power to do the rendering on a device like a HoloLens or a mobile device, which is great for things like saving battery while still getting that really high quality rendering happening.
Yeah, because there's always been the case with mixed reality is that you would have this beautifully sort of interactive model, but then the visuals that you saw were just not that real. Is that?
You get up a little bit too close to a pre-rendered chair, and it doesn't quite look like a chair.
Yeah.
If you can suck that data in through a device like HoloLens and stream the rendering, you can get much more high quality assets and take into account things like lighting so that you get a much more real world look and feel to the assets that are being rendered.